What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. This here is Legitical Response. We cover political news, keep you up to date, and keep you informed with everything that the government does. The government's always on the move, y'all. And especially here, we got an election coming up. Politics is ramping up, if you will. You know, we got people with rhetoric on this side, rhetoric on this side, rhetoric all over the place. We're talking this, we're talking that. And, you know, the comparisons between the two main candidates right now are getting kind of crazy, if you will. And, you know, the right, we've been screaming a lot about Joe Biden's incompetent, not only incompetent, but his mental faculties are failing. We can see it right in front of our face. And then you got people on the left like, well, no, oh, they're just mad because he gaffes every once in a while. No. It's gaffe after gaffe after gaffe after gaffe. It's a constant gaffe by Joe Biden.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to
What must be what? I'll lead an effective strategy to mobilize true international effort to pressure.
Let me start off with two words. Made in America.
You get the counter argument from that. Well, Donald Trump is old too. Look at him. As a matter of fact, if you guys remember back, 2018, 2019-ish, something like that, when Donald Trump was president, you know, they were trying to invoke the 25th Amendment to take Donald Trump out of the presidency for being incompetent. He's too old because he was walking slowly down a ramp, right? Joe Biden gets into office and then falls up the stairs several times, falls down, falls off his bike, and does all this. Crickets from the Democrats on the 25th Amendment. You get the guy can't say anything.
Anyway.
And then they have the nerve to say that Donald Trump has lost it. He's too old.
I've said, as between Biden and Trump, I will vote for Trump.
Response to you saying you'd vote for the Republican ticket. Wow, former AG Bill Barr, who let a lot of great people down by not investigating voter fraud in our country, has just endorsed me for president, despite the fact that I called him weak, slow-moving, lethargic, gutless, and lazy. Based on the fact that I greatly appreciate his wholehearted endorsement, I am removing the word lethargic from my statement. Thank you, Bill.
Yeah. It's classic Trump. What's the question?
I'm sorry. I had to throw that clip in there, and I wanted to talk about, you know, the Trump versus Biden thing, because right now Biden is down in the polls. Trump's winning in the polls. He's doing way better than he did in 2020. This is putting the fear of God, if you will, in the Democrats. They are absolutely scared because they don't want Joe Biden to win at all. You've got these protests we've talked about for the past few days, these protests going on college campuses. They're kind of insane. I think they're being way overblown, right? Like we saw the reaction from Johnson in Congress, right? Like that's completely overkill reaction, if you ask me. It's like we've been screaming and screaming at these people, do something about this, do something about that. And when you have some protests at a college campus, then they want to do something about that? I mean, immediately introducing a bill, the one we covered yesterday, introducing a bill to put anti-Semitism monitors on college campuses. It's like, come on, you guys, what are we doing here? But you can't get them to act on the border, right? You know, Congress passed H.R. 2, sure. But where is Johnson at the southern border talking about we need the National Guard here? Right? With Texas National Guard got ran over by about 500 migrants. You know, that was like a month or so ago. Talking about that. Talking about all the criminal aliens that are in the country that are committing crimes, violent crimes, murdering citizens. You know, they'll get up and say their little piece about that, but they won't actually do anything about it, right? Like, oh, we call on Joe Biden to secure the border, and that's about it, right? You got the power of the purse. You're willing to take the funding away from colleges, but you're not willing to take the funding away from the executive branch, right? When the executive branch is the one causing all this BS, right? Like, look at all the very biased prosecutions we've got going on in this country. I mean, every day when I open the news and I start scanning through the news, I see something about a January 6th rioter being sentenced to prison, right? It's like these people are still being sentenced to prison. That was over 3 years ago, right? Almost 3.5 years ago, and they're still being sentenced to prison, right? Like there've been over like 1,300 arrests. Most of these people have got charged with trespassing on public grounds. That is the people's house, right? Like, how are you trespassing? Donald Trump held a rally there. These people stormed the Capitol before he was even done talking, but yet this is an insurrection, right? But yet you can't get anybody to admit that the BLM riots of 2020 was an insurrection, which definitionally it was an insurrection. If you look up the definition of insurrection, it was most definitely an insurrection. But let's get into the complicated situation for Joe Biden right now, right? We've got all these protests. We've got this large wing of the Democratic Party, like anti-Israel, anti-Semitism. You got all these protests going on with Gen Z, young voters, a lot of regular just Democrats, not even college people, getting involved in this protest because they don't like what's going on in Israel. So Joe Biden has an quote-unquote insurrection, if you will, in his own party. So this is not looking good for Joe Biden. And now, Joe Biden's being put in an even more difficult place. Watch this.
The South African government on Monday called on the International Criminal Court to issue an arrest warrant for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu by mid-December. Minister in the presidency, Khumbudzo Ntshavheni, said it would signal a total failure of global governance if the ICC does not do so. Israel says it is defending itself following the October 7th attack by Hamas, but the South African government has repeatedly described the Israeli campaign in Gaza as genocide. Alongside 4 other countries, South Africa last week submitted a referral to the ICC to investigate whether war crimes and crimes against humanity have been committed in Gaza.
Israel, U.S. said working to prevent ICC arrest warrant against Netanyahu. Okay, so the International Criminal Court is now wanting to issue a warrant, and we've actively got Joe Biden working to stop this. This does not bode well for the pro-Palestinian arm of the Democrat Party, right? Like, I already don't understand that, right? I think that they don't understand what the hell they're even arguing, because you have a lot of those people that are actually pro-Hamas. They're actually, yay, go Hamas. It's like, okay, hang on, what are we doing here? Why are we celebrating? Why are we getting behind and protesting for a terrorist organization? It's like, I want to go to some of these people and ask, hey, do you realize you're protesting on behalf of a terrorist organization? Do you realize what they did on October 7th, killing like 1,200 Israelis, taking 250 hostages, which, by the way, they still have some of those hostages. It's like, do you guys know what y'all are doing? Quick sidetrack. But this doesn't bode well for Joe Biden, not in the least, because now he's actively trying to keep Netanyahu in power. If the International Criminal Court issues an arrest warrant for Netanyahu, that's kind of crazy. That tells you about what's going on the ground in Gaza, which I've said before. Yeah, they might need to chill. I've been warning about that for a while now. They need to calm down. They need to chill out with the civilian deaths. They need to be more surgical with their strikes. I believe that wholeheartedly. I'm totally against war. I don't like war whatsoever. So, of course, I'm going to be against that. I'm definitely against funding war. I don't think we need to be sending money to Israel, who seems to be having no problem whatsoever in their war effort. So, in a certain way, I agree with some of the pro-Palestinian, right? No funding for Israel on this. Yeah, totally agree with that, but for totally different reasons, right? Like, I just don't want to fund war. They just don't like Israel. But let's get into the story. According to reports in several Israeli media, the United States is part of a last-ditch diplomatic effort to prevent the International Criminal Court from issuing arrest warrants against Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and other Israeli officials. Pretty much the entire war cabinet of Israel. The top general, the Minister of Defense, I believe. In the news site Walla, analyst Ben Kaspert writes that Netanyahu is under unusual stress over the prospect of an arrest warrant against him and other Israelis by the UN tribunal in The Hague, which would be a major deterioration in Israel's international status. Yeah, it kind of would, because that pretty much would solidify everything that these pro-Palestinian protesters have been protesting, that Israel is actually committing a genocide. And it seems like the whole world is trying to rise up against Israel on this matter. And I can kind of see it in a certain way, you know. Sure, they should chill out, but at the same time, I've argued this several times before, and I will say it again, and I will say it to these people's faces. Any of these pro-Palestinian protesters, you know, you guys, by the way, share this video so they can get this message. Look, to these pro-Hamas people out there, right? Like, what are you doing? What are you thinking, right? These people over in Palestine, over in Gaza, all of these people voted Hamas into power. Hamas is a terrorist organization. We saw that with October 7th. These people voted for that. So when you vote for a terrorist organization, naturally, you're going to get put in situations where you're getting bombs dropped on your head. And when your government is getting shot at, and they take you, the civilian, and put you in front of them to take the bullets for them, yeah, you can't really complain when the civilians start getting killed. That is what Hamas is doing, right? They launch these assaults from hospitals, from schools, just asking, begging for civilians to die. And then the whole world drops the bomb on Israel because they killed some civilians while trying to kill a terrorist organization. I could go back and forth on this, playing devil's advocate on both sides of this. War is terrible. War is bad. And I'm totally against it. I think they need to stop. Once again, I think they need to stop killing so many civilians. Be more surgical with your strikes. But when you vote for terrorism, don't be mad when that's what you get. Netanyahu is leading a non-stop push over the telephone to prevent an arrest warrant, focused especially on the administration of U.S. President Joe Biden, Caspit writes. Haaretz analyst Amos Harrell writes that the Israeli government is working under the assumption that the ICC's prosecutor, Karim Khan, may this week issue warrants for the arrest of Netanyahu, Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, and IDF Chief of Staff Herzi Halev. I'm sorry, y'all, if I mispronounced those names. The U.S., which, like Israel, is not among the 124 countries that signed the Rome Statute of International Criminal Court, is already engaged in the effort to block the arrest warrants, according to Harrell. Netanyahu's latest public statement about the war said forthcoming decisions by the ICC could set a dangerous precedent. Yeah, it could, because now anytime you have collateral damage and civilian casualties in a war situation, you're going to get the ICC to come after the leader, whoever the leader is, right? Joe Biden be it, come after these people just for some civilian deaths. It might be a good thing. It sets a dangerous precedent, sure, but it might be a good thing. That may try to chill out some of these people from starting these pointless proxy wars, or just pointless wars outright, right? Like, if some of these leaders were scared of getting arrested for drone strikes in Yemen, for God's sakes, or in Syria, maybe they would chill out with some of these drone strikes. Like, I know the United States has become very, very good at these drone strikes, but, you know, where's the accountability for some of the earlier drone strikes where many civilians have died? We didn't get Obama with an ICC arrest warrant, did we? We didn't get George H.W. Bush with an ICC arrest warrant, or at least I haven't heard of it. Let me know down in the comments if they did issue one, or if you guys know of any, right? We didn't sign that Rome Statute of International Criminal Court, whatever the hell that was, but it's obviously, some sort of a treaty or an agreement with countries to agree with the ICC, the criminal court. If they issue an arrest warrant, the government has to, I guess, abide by the arrest warrant, or at least hold a extradition hearing or something of the sort. But, let me know down in the comments Could this be a good thing? Is it a dangerous precedent, or could it be a precedent such that maybe it chills some of these people out and stops them from some of this needless killing of civilians? Maybe you should get more surgical with your strikes. Let me know down in the comments. We will never stop defending ourselves, whereas decisions of the court in The Hague will not affect Israel's actions. They would be a dangerous precedent threatening the soldiers and officials of any democracy fighting criminal terrorism and aggression, he said on Friday. Yeah, there's a big difference between just blanket killing of civilians and going after a terrorist organization, right? The Israeli government, Netanyahu, and all the IDF, essentially, they seem to not care about civilian deaths, even though they say otherwise. From the outside, looking at the situation, and I don't know all there is to know about what's going on in Gaza. I follow the news and I keep up with that, so I see what's going on. I'm kind of informed on this situation. I would be willing to bet I'm a little bit more informed than a lot of those pro-Palestinian protesters, right? I follow the news. I see all the strikes constantly going on, and I don't like it. I'm kind of disheartened by that, if you will. Do I feel bad for some of these people? Yeah, I feel bad for the ones that didn't vote for Hamas. I'll be honest. I really don't feel bad for anybody that voted for Hamas to be their leadership, and then they get killed due to actions, as a result of the actions of Hamas. You kind of can't feel bad for these people. That's what they wanted. That's what they voted for, so that's what they are getting. And I don't see how the ICC isn't seeing that for what it is. They voted for it. That's what they wanted. So why are you interfering with what these people obviously wanted? I know not all of them voted for that. Sure, I'll take that argument. But it just comes down to war is bad. And there really are no good answers when it comes to war. And what are we going to do? But that's all I got for this one. I want to thank everybody for watching. And y'all try to have a good day and stay legitical. Peace.